Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Happiness Journey with Dr. Dan podcast, where every journey is worth living. My name is Dr. Dan, and I'm your host for today's episode. I'm a bilingual neuro-linguistic programming and cognitive behavior psychotherapist specializing in anger management issues, both court-appointed and private, marriage counseling using the EFT method, dissociative disorders, narcissistic personality disorders, depression, anxiety, dream analysis, and also provide life, business, and retirement coaching support. I provide individual one-on-one session in both French or English, and I'll do group settings. If you need any assistance, reach out to DMV Therapy and Coaching Services at 301-325-1550, and our website can be found at lifecoachdanamzalak.com. Today, I'm very excited to have for our 8th episode of season 16, a very special guest with selfless personality and providing care to others with mental illness, Saundra Boyd. And just like every of my past episode, I will leave it up to the guests to properly introduce themselves, as no one can do a better job. Saundra, the floor is yours.
Good morning, everyone. I am Saundra Boyd. I'm a mental health caregiver coach and consultant. My background is a registered nurse. I've been a registered nurse for over 40 years. I no longer practice at the hospital. I am just into my coaching right now. I coach anyone who wants to enhance their mental and physical well-being. Most of my time is spent with helping family caregivers of the mentally ill. I basically help them take better care of themselves so they can take better care of those that they love. It's a very, very difficult journey to be a caregiver. And statistics have shown that if you're a caregiver for someone with mental illness, those percentages go up even higher. So I started this. I take care of someone 24/7 who has a serious mental illness, but also my mom had a traumatic brain injury when I was 10 years old, and my father passed away 3 months after that, and I'm the oldest. So, my baby sister calls me a lifetime caregiver. For anyone out there who is in this caregiving journey, you know how difficult it is, but I love helping people. That's just my passion. That's what I feel like I was put for here on this world, in this world.
Well, Saundra, thank you so much for blessing us with your presence in this podcast. And I'm sure that a lot of people who are listening will definitely relate to your story when it comes to helping their loved one dealing with any kind of illness, either physical or mental. And I know how much it can take a toll on yourself and, of course, on the person that actually is a sick. And because of that, it creates a lot of resentment to a certain extent about saying, is this how I perceive my life to be? And, some people, they just want to also live their life, but because they have a loved one that needs assistance, it's very hard for them to be able to kind of like just explore the world or travel, whatever it is. So you said that your mom had an accident, like a traumatic brain injury. So is that from that point forward that you knew this is something that you wanted to do for the rest of your life? Or how did you decide that you wanted to go into that field?
Yeah, not the coaching, but my mom told me that ever since I was little, I said I wanted to be a nurse. And I don't know why. There's no nurses around me. I hadn't been in the hospital, but I think it just comes from this innate desire to help people. I think it's just there. It wasn't something I chose. She told me that I just started saying that. And then taking care. So even though I call myself a lifetime caregiver, I didn't know I was a caregiver at age 10. I didn't know what I was doing. We just lived in this world of helping my mom, and we just went through it every day. It was just our life. We didn't really, and when I say we, I'm talking about my siblings and I. We didn't really know. Like, we didn't know we were a caregiver. It wasn't until later that we realized like how much we were really doing, to help her. And so I retired 3 years ago. It all kind of revolved around this whole pandemic thing. But prior to retiring, I had started going to support groups for myself, for families of those with caregivers taking care of someone. And that word caregiver sometimes gets kind of weird because some people have a loved one who is homeless or who doesn't live in the household. So a lot of times they don't consider themselves a caregiver. So it's kind of like the caregiver or support person. In my mind, you're a caregiver because if that person happened to come home, you would still take care of them. They're still there. So, there's some family members who don't consider themselves caregivers, but I do. But anyway, I was going to support group, and one night this mom was just crying and crying. She had tried this, she had tried that. She couldn't figure out how to help her loved one. And I was just like, oh my gosh, I just jumped up and hugged her. I just felt so bad. And anyway, that continues to happen. And even though I'm in the same predicament as them, I'm there for support as well. But as a registered nurse, I could go to work and talk to one of the doctors. I knew I could go to work and ask someone to help me. I knew how to maneuver through the healthcare system, and these families did not. And so I had this desire to help them. And so this is kind of a long story. I'll just tell you real quick. My sister had been telling me, you've been doing ICU for almost 40 years. You need to get out of that. It's too stressful. And I was like, well, what else could you do? She goes, you have a wealth of knowledge. You could do all kinds of things. So for the business side, I had already been thinking about doing something separate from the hospital. And so this desire and then looking for something less stressful, it just kind of all merged together into Caregivers Haven LLC. That's how the business actually started. But I started helping people because I knew that I could help them maneuver through this healthcare system. I knew that I could help them decrease their anxiety because of the things that I was doing. And, a lot of people who are not in healthcare, there are just some tools that they don't know about. There are some tools that they have no idea how to get through. And so that's where all this came from. That's why I started doing this particular thing in my life. The nursing thing, and my mom said from a little kid, the coaching thing and helping these families, it just came from me just being compassionate and sympathetic and empathetic to these families. Like I could just see, I knew that they were going through exactly what I was going through, but probably to the 10th power because I didn't know how to find the help. So that's how it all kind of started.
But now, is it primarily mental illness, or also those who got handicapped because of physical, or car accident or whatever? Or is it just dementia or schizophrenia? Is it just related to mental?
Yeah. So so because I'm a nurse, I can coach anyone on any diagnosis, any family member. But the families that I've helped the most is family caregivers of the mentally ill. And I kind of tell them, I help you take better care of yourself so that you can take better care of your loved one. I tell them, I want you to be a great caregiver without losing yourself in this journey. Just empowering them with tools to be able to make it through the day. Because, like I said earlier, I don't know if that was before we started or just now, there have been a lot of studies. One of them was way back in 1999. The Surgeon General did one, but there's 53 million caregivers right now. It may have gone up. That's the last statistic I looked at. And then 40 to 70% of family caregivers have clinically significant symptoms of major depression. And then another 25 to 50% of them meet the actual criteria for major depression. So within that percentage, if you're taking care of someone with a mental illness, that percentage goes up even higher. So it's 14% of that become severe, have their own mental illness, but it goes up to 25% if you're taking care of someone with a mental illness. So this is very significant because now these caregivers are becoming depressed, having major depression. And so who's going to take care of their family member? So this is why caregivers need to be taken care of. And then the percentages of people who are taking care of someone with mental illness, if it increases, they really need help. They need some direction. They need to find education, resources, and support to support themselves. It's huge. And one of the things that I talk about with the families is practicing self-care. And I wish there was another word I can use besides self-care, because that word is used all the time and it drives me crazy because I feel like it's getting watered down and I feel like people aren't really paying attention to it anymore. But when I talk about self-care, I'm not talking about getting a massage and getting your nails done and getting a pedicure. Those things are nice. I love doing those things. But when I talk to the families, I talk to them about building a strong foundation of self-care. And that means nutrition, exercise, sleep, mindfulness practice, and spirituality practice. If you can build that foundation of self-care, so you're eating nutritious food, you're getting a good, proper sleep, just think about when you're real hungry or you haven't slept. We're cranky, we're irritable. At least I am. I get very cranky, irritable. And so you're not going to make the best decisions, right? And then everything is just going to seem harder. Everything is going to seem more gloomier. And so I really, really press self-care with the families because it's going to help you in life. And even if you're not a caregiver, practicing those five basics of, I call them the basics of self-care, is going to help anyone. You know, life is going to do whatever life is going to do. So you could, whether you're having financial problems or transportation problems or whatever issues you're having, whether you're a caregiver or not a caregiver, they're going to be tenfold or feel tenfold if you're sleepy or cranky or not exercising or don't have a mindfulness practice to calm that parasympathetic nervous system. And so I really talk to my families about that. There's a quote by Audre Lorde. I don't know if it's Lorde or Lorde, but it says, self-care is not about self-indulgence, it's about self-preservation.
Mhm.
So if you think about the word preservation and what that means to prevent from decaying, to stay alive. Like it's that preservation means. So if you think about, oh, self-care is about self-preservation, so that means you need to do things that are going to keep you alive. And so that's why I say there's a difference between getting your nails done and a massage versus these five basics, because a massage is going to make me feel good right now. You know, getting my manicure and pedicure, it's going to look pretty until, you know, it's time to get it done again, but it's not going to keep me alive, right? So nutritious food, getting enough sleep, exercising, a mindfulness practice, and spirituality, that's going to help preserve me. That's going to help me stay alive. And so when I coach family members, that's one of the things I go hard on, is trying to get them to see and understand that, because it's like it's life.
And you know, actually, when you look at it, the best metaphor to use, an analogy, is what airlines say or do. When, let's say, the cabin loses pressure and the mask, oxygen mask goes down, the first thing that you have to do is put mask on yourself before you put it into a family member. Because if you're fainted or if you lose consciousness, how are you going to be able to help others? So they have it correct. You have to really start learning to take care of yourself, and you could be at least full of energy or full of energy so you can help others, but or else it's counterproductive or counterintuitive, I would say.
Exactly. You said it perfectly. And a lot of, you know, I think especially people who fly a lot, I think they kind of just think that's just like some foo-foo, but no, that's serious. Like, I mean, just think about it. If you have a 2-year-old sitting with you and you faint, then who's going to help that 2-year-old? You know, if you don't and so it is our just natural thought is to help that baby, you know, but no, you gotta help yourself first. So it's like for me, um, one of my podcast guests talked about putting your name on the list first as far as self-care. Everyone has a to-do list, whether it's in your mind or on paper, but she talked about putting your name on the list first. This is probably 3 years ago, I think. So anyway, I literally started 9 o'clock, feed Saundra. You know, 5 o'clock, feed Saundra. I literally started doing what she said because as a caregiver, many times as a caregiver, we will make sure the person we're taking care of, we'll make sure our loved one has their every single meal. We make sure they got all their medication. We make sure they make every single doctor appointment. But in the meantime, we find ourselves skipping meals, or, oh, dang, I forgot my medicine this morning, or, oh, let me reschedule my doctor appointment. I'm too busy to get there, you know? And so I just remind the caregivers, all that love and care that you're giving to your loved one, put the same thing into yourself. Because again, same thing that we're talking about, you got to keep going. You got to keep being able to take care of them. So put the same exact love and care into yourself.
But here's the biggest challenge. Now, our listeners are saying to themselves, or after listening to this, because this is pre-recorded and it's going to be published later on, they say, well, this is all great to be able to have enough sleep, eat well, etc. But if, let's say, one of our loved one is dealing with mental illness or depression or anxiety, and they wake up in the middle of the night and they wake you up because they're screaming or nightmares, whatever it is, then your sleep is off the window. I mean, it's like you have a regular 8 hours or 7 or whatever it is. So how do you combat that? You just let your loved one scream as much as possible, but as long as you have your sleep, then you're good. How do you debate that?
So that is a huge problem. And I've gone through that, you know, before. And so that's when you have to think outside the box. So naps. calling over someone to say, hey, I only got like 2 hours sleep last night. Please, can you come over so I can take a 3 hour nap, a 2 hour nap? And so I don't want to get into all this pathophysiology, but if you think about the sleep wake cycle, the sleep is not going to be the same. Your nighttime sleep is the nighttime sleep is there for a reason. Like that's when all of our cells are being regenerated and all of our, cortisone, all of those hormones and acetylcholine's, all that stuff is being regenerated during that time. So the sleep is not going to be the same. However, not getting any sleep at all is bad. And yeah, so you're right. All these things I'm saying, oh, that all sounds lovely. But what if you can't? Or what if you are someone who lives in a state where there's no family around, no one can help you?
Thank you.
So yeah, those questions are very, 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 very good. However, I still say you're supposed to press toward the mark. You're supposed to still try to reach those goals. In the meantime, if you can't, just find alternatives. So if you are missing sleep at night, usually they're not in crisis all the time. It usually comes like in bunches, just short periods of time. If they're on medication and pretty stable. So yeah, I would say take naps. And for those of you who live alone or you feel like you're all alone and there's no one there to help, find some help. So, and what I mean by that, there are support groups, there are church groups, that you have your neighbors. Don't feel like you have to deal with this by yourself. Yeah. Because long term, it's going to be very difficult for you to handle this by yourself. It's a very difficult thing to take care of someone with mental illness, especially when they're in crisis, by yourself. Don't be afraid to reach out. There's someone out there to help you. If you haven't found them yet, they're there, and there are support groups. NAMI is the National Alliance of Mental Illness. They are a great resource for helping you find support. There's Mental Health America. That there's a national council of mental illness. Any of those people, they can help you like begin your start. And then in each city, I can't remember if it's 211 or 311. Each city has a phone number that you can call and say, hey, I need help. I need help with housing. I need help with respite care. Respite care is getting some help, someone to help you take care of your family member, to give you a break. So don't sit at home and just be like, oh, they won't take their meds. They've been in crisis for a while and I haven't slept. Don't do that. Just please, because that's where the symptoms of depression and things like that can come in. It's when you're not sleeping, you're not eating, and you can't handle it after a while. So your question is very valid. Yeah, it's like I'm fortunate to where I'm married, so I have a husband. One of my sons and my daughter, they travel for work, so every now and then they pop in and they're here like for a couple of weeks at a time. So I have help, but I know many people who don't, and I also know many people who, a couple of people, my support group. I know that there's some people who like have no help, like for real, no help. And they have gone on to have major like physical and mental problems. And a thing with stress, stress starts out as just stress, like, oh girl, I'm so stressed, right? But people don't understand that internally there are a lot of things going on. Our sympathetic nervous system is popped up. It's off the chain, and we stay in that fight or flight too long, and then it's going to turn into anxiety. It's going to turn into other things, because when we're stressed, again, those hormones that I talked about earlier, epinephrine, dopamine, cortisol, whatever all that stuff is, they're increased. And so if we don't take care of it to allow our parasympathetic nervous system to help us calm back down, that's when it can lead to all of this depression. It can lead to illness. It can lead to heart attacks. It can, because our body, it can cause us to have anxiety and mental health issues, but it can also cause somatic problems like back spasms or stomach ulcers or things like that. And so, yeah, we gotta tap into it. And I know that it's not a perfect world. People think, oh, you guys are so lucky because you're a registered nurse and your husband's a therapist. You guys know all the things to do. And it's like, first of all, no, we don't. Second of all, you can read a book and have all kind of experience, but when it happens in your house, it's different. You don't always know what to do. And third of all, he thinks he knows it all because he's a therapist, and I think I know it all because I'm a nurse. And so there's a lot of times we're like, instead of helping, we're arguing with each other. So there are all different kind of dynamics in every single household. And so yes, I'm saying to do all these things, but it doesn't mean it's perfect. But I can tell you, because I try to do all of these things, it helps me to not just go off the deep end. If I do get stressed out or irritable, I know how to go in and do some breathing exercises. I know how to go in and lay on my yoga mat and do a meditation. Just this past week, I wasn't getting a lot of sleep, and I had to apologize to my family. I was being irritable and mean. I'm going to be transparent here. And so I had to like catch myself, because yeah, you need to get some sleep. You need to go to bed earlier. And it's all because it's fun. There's like 10 people in my house right now because all my kids and grandkids and their spouses are here. And so I'm just like playing and having fun and with the kids and stuff and not paying attention to myself. And so yeah, I got irritable. And so it doesn't mean that my life is perfect. It doesn't mean that I practice self-care perfectly, but it means that I understand what the basics of self-care, I understand what it is.